in 1967. America was exploding with music, culture, and horsepower, but hidden inside. Chevrolet's lineup was a beast almost no one knew about. A Corvette so dangerous, so brutally fast that GM themselves tried to keep it a secret. No flashy ads, no big promotions, just whispers among racers. The L88. Today, one of these forbidden Corvettes can sell for $2.6 million. But to understand why, you must uncover the story. Chevrolet never wanted you to hear. Why Chevrolet built a secret weapon. The mid-1960s were not just about peace signs and rock and roll. They were also about horsepower wars. Detroit's Big Three, Ford, Chrysler, and GM, were locked in a never-ending battle to prove who could build the most dominant machines. Ford had shocked the world with the GT40 at Le Mans. Chrysler was terrorizing drag strips with its 426 HEMI. And Chevrolet, they had the Corvette, stylish, respected, but often dismissed by Europeans as more of a boulevard cruiser than a serious race contender. Zora Arkus Duntov, the man known as the father of the Corvette, didn't like that. Reputation one bit. Born in Belgium, raised in Europe, and trained as an engineer, Zora had racing fuel running through his veins. He dreamed of a Corvette that wouldn't just look good parked outside a diner, but one that could dominate on tracks like Sebring, Daytona, and even Le Mans. Behind the scenes, Zora was always pushing GM to take risks. He saw the Corvette not as a toy, but as America's chance to show the world it could compete with Ferrari, Porsche, and Jaguar. And when GM gave him the green light to develop a no-compromise racing engine, Zora didn't just build a motor, he created a monster. That monster was the L88. This wasn't just another option code on a dealer sheet. It was a carefully engineered weapon, designed not for comfort or cruising, but to win races. The L88 was Chevrolet's ace up its sleeve, a car never meant for casual buyers, but for racers who knew how to handle something this brutal. Engineering the beast, what made the L88 different. At first glance, the 1967 L88 Corvette didn't look that different from a regular big block Corvette. The body was the same sleek Stingray design, the curves familiar, the attitude unmistakable. But beneath the fiberglass hood lay something completely different, something lethal. The heart of the L88 was its 427 cubic inch V8 engine. Now, Chevrolet already offered big blocks in the Corvette lineup, but this wasn't just another option. This engine was a purpose-built racing power plant. Every component was overbuilt, designed to handle punishment that would destroy ordinary engines. The L88 featured forged crankshafts, forged pistons, and ultra-strong connecting rods. It breathed through aluminum cylinder heads, which were lighter and allowed for better heat dissipation during long, grueling races. The camshaft was wild, optimized for high RPM, power rather than low-speed drivability. On top sat a massive 850 cubic feet per minute Holley 4-barrel carburetor, funneling fuel like a fire hose. Chevrolet officially rated the L88 at 430 horsepower. Sounds strong, but here's the twist. That number was deliberately underrated. Independent dyno tests proved the truth. A properly tuned L88 produced 550 to 600 horsepower. That made it one of the most powerful engines, not just in America, but in the world. But sheer power was only half the story. The L88 demanded 103-octane racing fuel. This wasn't gas you could find at your corner station. It was specialized fuel sold at racetracks. Put regular pump gas in an L88, and you risked destroying the engine. Right there, Chevrolet was sending a message. This was not your average Corvette. Backing up the engine was the legendary Muncie M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed manual transmission, famous for its whine and brute strength. A heavy-duty clutch, stiffer suspension, and advanced cooling systems completed the package. This was a car Engineered to spend more time on racetracks than on Main Street. To a racer, it was heaven. To an ordinary driver, it was pure hell. A car Chevrolet didn't want you to buy. Here's the irony. Chevrolet built the L88, but they didn't want people to buy it. Why? Because it was too extreme for the average Corvette buyer. The Corvette had always straddled a strange line. On one hand, it was America's sports car, stylish, affordable, and relatively comfortable. On the other, it had racing aspirations. The L88 tipped that balance so far toward racing that Chevrolet feared regular customers would hate it. So instead of marketing it, Chevrolet did the opposite. They buried the L88 deep in the option list with little fanfare. No glossy ads, no showroom posters, just a mysterious three-digit code most buyers wouldn't notice. And if someone did notice, Chevrolet threw up roadblocks. The L88 package automatically deleted comfort options. No heater, no air, conditioning, no radio, no fancy trim. It was stripped to the bone. GM even rated the horsepower lower than some cheaper Corvette engines, hoping that would scare off thrill seekers who didn't know what they were really getting. But the people who did know, the racers, the insiders, the ones who understood what L88 meant, saw past the smoke and mirrors. They knew this was Zora Arkus Duntov's secret weapon. They knew this was the Corvette that could finally prove itself against Europe's best. So, while most 1967 buyers drove home in regular Stingrays with all the bells and whistles, a select few, just 20 to be exact, took delivery of something very different. A snarling, high-compression monster built not for comfort, but for glory. The racetrack, legacy, L88's hidden purpose. On the surface, the 1967 Corvette L88 looked like just another American sports car, but on the racetrack, it was a completely different animal. This car wasn't built for Friday night, cruising, or parking lot car shows. It was born to race. When privateer racers, the independent teams and garage-built crews of the 1960s, got their hands on the L88, they immediately realized what Chevrolet had created. It was the closest thing America had to a factory race car, even though GM wasn't allowed to officially back motorsports due to its corporate racing ban. Take the 12 hours of Sebring and the Daytona 24 hours, grueling endurance races where European giants like Ferrari and Porsche had traditionally ruled. The L88 Corvettes that entered weren't pampered million-dollar race machines. They were production-based cars, but with the sheer brute force of that 427 engine and the durability of its heavy-duty components. They shocked the competition. Drivers reported that once the L88 hit its stride, it was nearly unstoppable on long straights. The engine screamed past 6,500 RPM, delivering speed that no one expected from a Corvette. And thanks to its cooling upgrades, it could run lap after lap without overheating, something lesser engines simply couldn't handle. Even though Chevrolet never officially promoted the L88 in racing, the car built a cult reputation among grassroots teams. It became the weapon of choice for those brave enough to tame it. In the Sports Car Club of America, SCCA, L88s earned respect by consistently punching above their weight. The car's presence was like a whispered secret. In the paddock, if you saw an L88 show up, you knew you had serious competition. The legacy of those races cemented the L88 as more than just a rare option code. It was proof that the Corvette wasn't just for show, it was a true contender on the world stage. Production numbers and extreme rarity. Now here's the part that makes collectors drool. Just 20 L88 Corvettes were built in 1967. That's not a typo. Out of nearly 23,000 Corvettes sold that year, only 20 carried the L88 option. To put that in perspective, Ford built over 1,000 Boss 429 Mustangs in its 3-year run. Chrysler made hundreds of HEMI Cudas, but the 1967 L88, only 20. It was rarer than rare, practically a secret, and because the L88 was designed for racing, many of those 20 cars weren't pampered collectibles. They were thrashed on tracks, pushed to their limits, and in some cases, wrecked. That makes surviving examples even scarcer. A clean, numbers-matching 67 L88 is like the holy grail for Corvette enthusiasts. Chevrolet did continue the L88 option in 1968 and 1969, producing a few hundred more across those 2 years. But the 1967 model stands apart. It was the first, the rarest, and arguably the most desirable. It combined the raw power of the L88 with the final year of the C2 Stingray body style, widely considered one of the most beautiful designs in Corvette history. So when you add up the numbers, 20 produced, even fewer surviving, and each one tied to a legend, you start to understand why the 1967 L88 has become $1 million car. In the world of classic cars, rarity is everything, and the L88 wasn't just rare, it was practically mythical. Why collectors pay millions today? So, what makes a car worth $2.6 million? After all, when it rolled off the assembly line in the 1967, the Corvette L88 was just another option package. It wasn't dripping in chrome, it wasn't advertised as exotic, and it didn't come with luxury features. To the untrained eye, it was almost underwhelming. But to collectors, value isn't just about what a car is, it's about what a car represents. And the L88 represents a perfect storm of desirability, rarity. With only 20 units built in 1967, the L88 is rarer than most Ferraris or Lamborghinis from the same era. Scarcity alone drives demand through the roof. Performance. The L88 was, without exaggeration, one of the fastest production cars of its time. Its real-world 550-plus horsepower made it faster than most European exotics that cost far more. Historical importance. The L88 wasn't just another Corvette. It was the car that proved Chevrolet could build a world-class race machine. It symbolized Zora Arkus Dash, Danto's vision of America standing toe-to-toe with Europe. Forbidden aura. There's something irresistibly cool about a car Chevrolet didn't want you to buy. That mystery, that sense of secrecy, makes it feel like owning contraband from the golden age of muscle cars. Design. Being the final year of the C2 Stingray body, the 1967 Corvette is already a beauty. Combine that design with the L88's fire-breathing heart, and you have a unicorn. For serious collectors, these factors make the L88 not just a car, but an artifact of American automotive history. Owning one isn't about driving it, it's about preserving a piece of a story that changed car culture forever. The $2.6 million sale, breaking records. In 2014, a pristine 1967 Corvette L88 crossed the auction block at Barrett-Jackson. The room was electric. Collectors knew this wasn't just any Corvette, it was one of the finest, surviving examples of the rarest production year. When the hammer fell, the car sold for $3.85 million, including fees, approx. $2.64 million. At the time, setting a record for a Corvette at auction. Headlines around the world captured the shock. A Corvette, a car once dismissed as a flashy toy, had sold for Ferrari money. But here's the kicker. Buyers weren't just paying for fiberglass and horsepower. They were paying for the legend. That specific car represented everything the L88 stood for: secrecy, power, rarity, and racing pedigree. Since then, every time an L88 has appeared at auction, it has drawn global attention. Even non-car enthusiasts are stunned when they hear the numbers. It forces people to ask, how can a Corvette be worth that much? The answer is simple. The L88 isn't just a Corvette. It's the Corvette, the ultimate expression of what the model could be when stripped of compromise. And when something that rare, that raw, and that historically important comes up for sale, collectors will spend whatever it takes. the L88 versus other muscle legends. When we think of American muscle car royalty, a few names instantly come to mind. The 426 Hemi Cuda, the Boss 429 Mustang, the Shelby Cobra 427, and even the Pontiac GTO. Judge each of these cars has its own cult following, its own record-breaking auction, stories, and its place in history. But here's the thing, while they were all brutally powerful, most of them were also built to be sold. They were marketed with flashy ads, hyped in magazines, and produced in far greater numbers. Chrysler wanted everyone to fear the Hemi. Ford wanted everyone to drool over the Boss 429. Shelby wanted the Cobra to become a racing and street legend. The L88? It was different. It wasn't meant for mass appeal. It wasn't advertised. It wasn't glamorized, and it wasn't even supposed to end up in the hands of casual buyers. Chevrolet didn't want just anyone to have it. That secrecy gives it an edge that even other icons can't match. On the drag strip, the L88 could outrun just about anything Detroit put out in the late 60s. On the road course, its endurance-focused design gave it stamina that few muscle cars could dream of. Unlike most muscle cars, which were straight-line bruisers, the L88 was a dual-purpose weapon, fast in a straight line, but also engineered to survive the grueling world of endurance racing. So, when you compare the L88 to its contemporaries, the difference is clear. The others were kings of the boulevard. The L88 was king of the battlefield, the myth, the mystery, and the legacy. More than 50 years later, the 1967 L88 Corvette is no longer just a car. It's a myth, wrapped in fiberglass and steel. Think about it. Most car enthusiasts will go their entire lives without ever seeing one in person. With just 20 built in its debut year, sightings are rarer than spotting a Ferrari 250 GTO, and in some circles, just as celebrated. Even among Corvette owners, saying you've driven an L88 is like saying you've shaken hands with Elvis. It puts you in a league of your own. The L88's legacy lives on, not just because of its performance, but because of its aura of secrecy. It was a car hidden in plain sight, offered quietly, understood only by those who knew what to look for. That mystery makes it timeless. For Corvette lovers, it represents the pinnacle of what Zora Arkus Duntov always wanted, a Corvette that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Europe's best. For collectors, it's the ultimate prize, a car that was never supposed to exist in the public's hands yet somehow slipped through, and for the rest of us, the L88 is proof that sometimes the most legendary machines aren't the ones everyone can buy, but the ones that were built for a chosen few. Machines so raw and uncompromising that they transcend time. Today, every mention of the L88 is met with reverence. Every auction draws headlines. Every surviving example is guarded like treasure, and every car enthusiast knows that, in 1967, Chevrolet created something far greater than just another Corvette. They created an American legend. So, when you hear that a 1967 L88 Corvette sold for $2.6 million, don't just brush it off as another auction headline. Don't think of it as some old car with a big block engine. No, think of it as something far more powerful. Think of it as history on wheels. A machine that wasn't supposed to exist in your driveway, wasn't supposed to be cruising down Main Street, and wasn't supposed to be in the hands of ordinary buyers. This was Chevrolet's dirty little secret, a car they tried to hide in plain sight, sold only to the racers who knew the right questions to ask. The L88 was never about luxury. It wasn't about style points. It wasn't about bragging rights. At the country club, it was raw, violent, unapologetic horsepower, the kind of machine that chewed up pretenders and spat them out at the finish line. It was built to dominate Sebring, Daytona, and Le Mans, not Sunday traffic. It was Chevrolet daring to say, if you think we can't build a world-class racing weapon, watch this. And here's the crazy part. Most people in 1967 never even knew it existed. GM never splashed it across magazine covers. They never filmed glamorous ads with a voiceover saying, "Introducing the ultimate Corvette." Instead, the L88 was like a whispered rumor passed around in garages and racetracks. If you didn't know about it, you weren't supposed to. And if you did well, you belonged to a very small, very dangerous club. Fast forward to today, and that secrecy has become legend. Out of millions of Corvettes built over the decades, just 20 L88s were produced in 1967. That's it, 20. Most collectors will spend their entire lives chasing one without ever laying eyes on it. And when one surfaces, the world stops. Auction houses roar, headlines explode, and the number climbs 1 million, 2 million, sometimes more. Why? Because the L88 isn't just a car anymore. It's a time capsule. It's Zora Arkus Dash, Duntov's dream carved in steel, fiberglass, and fire. It's America's answer to the European giants, proof that Detroit could play in the same league as Ferrari and Porsche. It's a ghost from 1967 that still terrifies the road today, and maybe that's why it feels almost mythical. Because legends aren't built for everyone. They're built for the chosen few, the gladiators, the racers, the dreamers bold enough to hold the wheel when 560 horses come alive under your foot. So, the next time you hear about that 1967 Corvette L88, remember, you're not just hearing about a car. You're hearing about the forbidden supercar of America, the hidden beast that GM tried to block away. A machine so rare, so raw, and so uncompromising that it turned from a secret into a $2.6 million crown jewel. The L88 wasn't built for the masses. And that's exactly why, today, it belongs only to the elite few who can even dream of owning one. If you enjoyed this incredible story, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more epic automotive adventures. Your support keeps these stories alive.